talking to AKA Steve the Buddha. He was talking to the Buddha, and he was saying, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. Now, how long would that take for the Buddha to get that message? No time whatsoever, yeah? But what happens is, when we hear this message, AKA Steve believes he's the one who heard the message, and it actually, in a short term, it's going to confuse him, yeah? Because maybe he's invested in 20 years trying to become like the Buddha, but through Buddhism, you know? So by practicing 20 years and trying to acquire the attributes he feels the Buddha has, and he's going to get some a little bit, and it's going to be a long process. Where this is quite clear, he says, he's not talking to Steve, he's talking to the Buddha. And he says, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. So where is the dilemma? It's not the Buddha not getting the message, it's that which is claiming the message, which is not the Buddha. Yeah? So if you see what you're not, and then the Buddha finally hits, see, this is like here. These talks, we try to overwhelm the head, yeah? And I'm not talking to any of you. I've learned it doesn't go anywhere. I'm throwing it over your head because I know mind or Buddha is going to catch it. I know it. I have total faith in it. So I throw it, and I've checked out your arm width and your catcher's mitt. I know you can throw a certain fucking waffle ball and it'll get through. And it's sort of like a big spiritual sperm, and only one has to hit the freaking mother egg. And once the mother egg gets hit by that sperm, the mother egg conceives an idea. I may not be that. Yeah? That which it's been taking itself to be. And then the next, it's like a twin comes out right after it. I can be free from it. And now the horse is in front of the cart. Instead of trying to be free as the self, or through the self, or by the self, you are now free from the self. And it's an inherent freedom because you never have been a self, nor will you ever be a self. So nothing needs to be vanquished, nothing needs to be killed. You don't have to go back and see if it resurrected, it's non-existing. Yeah? That's the beauty of it. And if you start getting messages, some downloads, they'll always have the quality of timelessness. Boom, like that. And if you have a sufficient enough one, maybe it will, as soon as it hits you, it will inform you it's always been this way. Nothing that you believed had happened or was going to happen ever did happen. Yeah, to change this. You have never not been what you are. Like a sky. You are like all this, so much stuff happens in the sky, yet none of it affects the sky. That's what mind is like. You and I are completely untouched by all the activity that came after us. If we make it before, it can ruin our freaking lives. If we believe we are the cause, but if you see that which comes after, there's a sense of being the before, finally. Now you're not driven by thoughts, you see them, yeah? You are so solidly before thoughts and feelings and even actions that they can arise, and there's forgiveness if there needs to be, or you make amends, or whatever you want to call it, but you have a huge amount of space. And this message is seamless. Perfect all the way through. You see what you're not, you recognize what you're not, and you find out what you are. Instead of trying to find out what you are from what you're not, you find out what you're not, and then you are what you are. We know the one way doesn't work. So the mental state, that whatever it is, got intention in it, its movement is the claim. That's all it does, yeah? And you can see its claim, its footprints in our language by the word mind, yeah? So thoughts come, it becomes aware of them, it claims them to imply the thinker, yes? Feelings all day being used to imply the feeler. Actions all day being used to imply the actor. Yeah. once you seemingly are in, you can't get out through the thinking and the feeling and the acting. All of them will be claimed. Even the most beautiful meditation will be used to impress or insinuate you're the meditator. You can't get out of it through it. You have to see it before it, yeah? And I'm saying humbly, you are before it. Nothing precedes you. People in recovery here? Any people? Yeah. So in recovery, there's a great statement called self can't get out of self. That's exactly what most of us are engaged with, really. And it's a warning, and to me this is like a warning. Really, really clear spiritual little cryptic statements are warnings to me. They should, just like this on a cigarette pack, there's those little warnings. These little things should be stamped on every spiritual book on the first page, you know? Or like a public announcement while you're driving to your next retreat. You are what you're looking for. Maybe you just pull over and spend the money in a different way. You don't need 4 hours of a dissertation, you need an invitation. You've all been served the spiritual subpoena, and you'll be called to the court of light, and all your seeming transgressions will be absolved as if they never happened. Because we've all been to the court of the mental state. We're living out sentences, really. We were convicted a long time ago. And you're not going to get out of parole, no probation. You know, this is amazing for me, because this, it was like an urban renewal project. All the work on this stopped like that, you know what I mean? And it was the greatest day for the body, because the body just cannot handle the mantle of being the center of the universe. It cannot handle to be the object that's always thought about. It's way too fucking much for it, you know? It gets released, and now what floods in is acceptance, and you see how non-accepting there was about your own seeming condition. That all of this spirituality was a way of denying actually how you find yourself as being unacceptable. You just become okay as that which I never saw to be okay before. Yeah. So. Any questions?
Paul, you said something about being or living before thought.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't feel like I have any real experience with that, but what I am experiencing is shorter and shorter time periods between the thought and maybe the recognition that it's a thought. Right? It never used to happen, and then it would happen every now and then, and as I get older and look at this a little more, the time gap seems to get shorter and shorter.
Yeah, good.
You got anything for me on that?
I would take that as an indication you're onto something. Just keep entertaining. Yeah, to me, this can demonstrating a traveling lighter. That's what happened with me. So over the years, it doesn't mean the geography of my actual figure of life's going to change. Maybe I'll get cancer or lose my wife or something like that. But I noticed that I travel lighter with whatever life has in store for me. And after years and years of that, I came to the conclusion, really, what more do you want than that? Yeah. I mean, awareness has no value in awareness. Awareness, the being awake to awakeness has value here where you can seem to be asleep to it. That's where the value lies. Yeah? I believe we're all inherently awake. You can seem to be awake to that fact or not, but it's still a fact. Yeah? And I don't see how you can get around it. Basically, where we all meet is in the five senses. Yeah? The consciousness that's in contact through the five gates of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. There's no volition involved in any of that. If my head is pointed in one way and my eyes are open, I'm going to see whatever comes in front of me. Yeah? And I don't go to seeing lessons, to practice seeing. And I'm never sweating or doesn't seem to demonstrate any exertion. Yeah? The seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. I just don't understand why you would believe thought and effort are going to get you to a place where there's no thought or effort demonstrated. I just don't see how, like a great Zen master in Faith Mind says, you can't use activity to produce stillness. That's activity. You can't get out of this little thumb puzzle. You have to see you're not in it. Once that you feel you're in it, there's the drive to get out. That's the bigger end. The experience of being out of it isn't produced by your escape. It's by realizing there's no place to escape from. That's just like the feeling of being in the moment wasn't produced by trying to get into the moment. It's produced by realizing you can never be out of a moment. That's the production. And it's inherently stabilized because if I believed I could get into a moment, I also believe I can get out of the moment, and most people lay on that level of belief that they're out of the moment. But before that, you realize there's not one moment you've ever been out, ever. Yeah. So there's no drive to get into the moment because you've never been out of a moment. So there's no double whammy where if I believe I've achieved something, I also believe I can lose it. There's no achieving what already is, and there's no losing what already is. That's the beauty of it. You're out of the equation completely. And when you rest, it will verify itself. When you rest, you won't be getting up in 5 minutes. I mean rest. Yeah? You will be resting, and you'll never get gypped again. Sleeping every day. Never gypped. You never fall for the idea that I wasn't really there. You've been here this whole time. If we were here, we could have a 3-day, God bless us, man, 3-day retreat chanting we're not a body. But the only thing that chants that is a body. The only thing that wants to get out of a body is a body. So you want to get out of a body by believing I'm not a body, you're just reinforcing the body every chant. You don't see it? That's duplicated, triplicated in all our practices. We're trying to arrive at where we already are through a false reference. It's like you have the best maps to get to LA, but there's an assumption you're leaving from Omaha, when in fact you're in LA. That's the dilemma, and it just duplicates itself. And my humble experience with it or belief is if you don't see this little heist, you're going to be looking from its effects. You're not going to correct it 50 steps away. The correction is before it. From before it never happened. It's appearing to happen to us because we're believing it. You can't undo what has never been done. This is the problem, my spiritual resume has a lot of holes in it. I could see a lot of fault. I should have stayed a little longer with the guru, or stayed did a 4-month retreat. But I did one thing in my life I completely mastered, and that's drug addiction. I was a complete devotee to cocaine. I would match my devotion to drugs with all the greatest devotees of spirituality, like the monkey god and all like that. I was right up with them. I loved cocaine. I'd do anything for it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm telling you something, you cannot transcend an imaginary place. There's no vehicle that's going to get you out of here. None. You can't escape from an imaginary place. We're dreaming.
So what's the hope if you can't escape? What's the hope then?
No hope whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if we're already where we are and what we are, which is the self, which is before anyways, then like if you use the example you said earlier, like Buddha and Buddha, if Buddha already knows that, it's already whatever it is, it's the body that needs to relax, right? That's getting hooked in, the self, the identification with that. Or do we really need to maneuver it, or are we already ahead of, in the right positioning? We already are, right? There's really nothing that needs to happen.
But a lot will happen. The thing is, let's say the dreamt hears that it's the dreaming, yeah? It's gonna mutate that message and start I'm gonna have 70 Cadillacs and great joints and shit like that, yes? It will mimic what it believes, wherein from the dreaming, you'll have acceptance about what's happening, yeah? Doesn't mean you'll fucking put up with it, but everything that enters the stage you'll bow to first. And then maybe there's a thing that I don't want to live with this or that, yes, as the action figure. But there'll be an honoring of what's arising, not in a stance of fucking denying it. Because that's how let's say you don't want to be a fraud, you'll feel like one thousands of times. Yeah. If it becomes totally okay to be fraudulent, because we all are, you'll never have the fear of being a fraud again. You see? If you, that's why we have the website. There's tons of talks on there. You get the best of Paul Hederman. I think live is the best, but people I think feel safer with the YouTubes and stuff. But there's tons of stuff out there because repetition can be helpful, here. Because let's say one day it doesn't get through, all the sperm get diverted, but one other day it'll get through. And all that is needed is to correct. Instead of looking for what you are from what you're not, you will see what you're not from what you are. That's all that's needed. One example of that, and you'll imagine, and you'll be able to entertain the possibility of the horse being in front of the cart. And then this direction is seamless. It doesn't vary, it doesn't go off. And it doesn't do real complicated conundrums, and you don't get driven to look for extreme radical non-duality, or like our friends the other night were saying, what's in store for non-duality 2018? Nothing. What's the new model that's going to come out? Nothing. There's no radical turbocharged non-duality. You're not going to put it into your workout. It's. The beauty of it is it's a fact, and it stands on its own. Yes. It doesn't need any, what has been the big mistake? The big seeming mistake is we've been looking for what we are from what we're not. That's it. So instead of looking at what you're not, we've been looking from what we're not. Yeah? And then when we look from what we're not, that looking is blind to what you are. Have you found it yet?
No.
I would say there's hundreds of years of seeking maybe in this room. Can you imagine if you ordered a couch 1989 and you still haven't delivered it? You would be fucking super pissed. But this is such an incredible business. you'll have to go for lifetimes. Who's feeding you that? If you had an ease and comfort in your own skin, all your seeming noble drives would probably be dismissed. They're all coming from dis-ease and an agitation. And most of us would be much happy if we never heard the word awakening or enlightenment. It's driven a lot of us freaking crazy. Look at the mental process claims enlightenment. You know? Enlightenment means cessation of all suffering. The mental process claims it and uses it to promote suffering. That's exactly what's happening all day. Something has taken what we're offering, which is life, and calls it its own. And it has convinced us that it's us. Yeah. So every moment it comes in and we watch it, you witness, you can see the selfing. But when it comes into all your little secret rooms, the first thing you say to it is, it's me. You're right, there's an identification as that which is foreign. It has totally, it came in and taken over, let's say, the little host. Yeah? And it has convinced the host that it's the host. So basically you're living from its point of view. Yeah. And it has no intention of finding what you are.
Paul, it seems
Yeah.
like the why of that mental process is just completely beside the point and pointless,
Yes.
basically. And that that looking at the mental process is like looking at anything, like a tree or anything. It just does what it does by its nature,
Yeah.
without any deeper meaning.
Yes. We give it the meaning.
Right.
Exactly. It's going to continue. See, remember that there's that old story about the lady who saves the snake, and then he gets a little eyedropper and feeds it, and cuts a little sock up and makes it a comforter, and then brings it back to life, and it's walking around with it, and the snake bites her, and the lady goes, "Why, Mr. Snake, did you bite me?" And the snake goes, "Hey, I'm a snake, yeah? You're not going to make this thing a friend." It's not going to be your buddy that goes along with you on the spiritual trail.
Well, and it seems like one of its main narratives is that you're figuring it out. That freedom is about figuring something out. There's nothing there.
Yes. It's like being a professor of holes, yet you keep falling in the holes. What's the point of the knowledge? And in AA we say self-knowledge avails us nothing, but knowledge of self is very, very valuable. But self-knowledge, knowledge that's claimed by self, will neuter it. But knowledge of self is valuable. See the direction. There's nothing wrong with knowledge. If the knowledge is claimed, it's being misused or for another use than you imagine. If you actually study that which is claiming it, there's a lot of value in that. Because if you see it as a foreign, see this happened with me in AA, 9th year of sobriety. I used to do workshops around the world actually on the 4th step, do this inventory process. And so it comes out of this chapter called How It Works in our text, Recovery AA. And it says, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. So the co-founder of the program separated the two. He may not even know it, because to me it was a download anyway, the big book. So he says very clearly, being convinced is a present tense verb, yeah? I am being convinced all the time that I'm not managerial quality. Really. I'm not, so I'm convinced of that from my experience out there. So being convinced that self, manifested in a lot of different ways, is what has defeated us. We're the us in this little sentence. And then there's something called self, yeah? To me, it's the selfing. See, I think they mistook it for a noun, which gives it too much reality. To me, it's a verb, selfing. The selfing is the act of being identified as a self. It's not a verb and a noun, it's a whole verb. The act of being identified as a self is a verb. It's not the act of being identified as is the verb and then there's self, which is a noun. No, it's a verb. And if there's a listening to the verb and believing it, then the sense of self gets produced by us, yeah? You know what I mean? So the mental process is presenting this, hey, and then all day it's reinforcing it, and then as soon as there's a believing in it, there's a sense of self is produced, and now when an action occurs, it feels like you did it, yeah? When a thought occurs, it seems like you're the thinker somehow. You have something somehow as a cause, you have something to do with it all. It's all manufactured. It's all made up. And time is the greatest culprit of it all. Time, this magic trick would go nowhere without time. Because the whole magic trick is the presupposing, right? You see the word he used? It's incredible. He didn't just say supposing, he said presupposing. So there's the supposing of the mental state that you're a thing, and then when the no thing listens to it and starts believing it, it presupposes itself as the thing before it. That's it. That's how that which comes after implies it's before. The mental process's product, a self, comes after. If we buy it as the audience, it's felt as if it's before. Before what? Before thoughts, I'm the thinker. Before feelings, I'm the feeler. Before actions, I'm the actor. Before having, before losing, suddenly we become the before. And then everything after it is about the before. So instead of seeing life as happening, it's interpreted as life's happening to me. That's slavery. If you believe this is an activity now, if someone says, oh, you were bound 12 years ago and you'll be free, it's baloney. It's a possibility. It goes either way right now. There was never a bondage and there's never a freedom. It's all seemingly so to us. We are reality. So it appears to me I'm bound, and then it appears to me I'm suddenly free, only to suddenly appear to be bound again. This is selfing. It's an activity. And what happens if you see something that you called you as an activity? If it calls you, how's it ever going to stop? If you see it as an activity, it can stop. Yes? This is this thing. When I saw this, being convinced that self manifests in various ways, when I saw self as a foreign installment, the next possibility was I can be free from it. And when that dawned on me, it revealed to me I had my whole life since I was 6 years old completely fit under the tent of that statement, self can't get out of self. I had been trying to get out of self as a self my whole freaking life since 6 years old. I was trying to get out of what I'm not as what I'm not. That's more of what I'm not than ever. If you get a taste of it, feed it, you know. Go to YouTube, do something, because if you go home and think about it, it'll be neutered again. This isn't about thinking. You don't have to have heard this. You have been served the spiritual subpoena. What is here knows it's here. Didn't you feel it when he walked in? I sat here. I was just at a cafe eating. I came in here, just sitting here, and it was fucking mighty juice, you know. Something knows already. It's just... What happens is the ahas and the resonating gets hijacked, and now you start looking for yourself. Yeah? Now, in this society, everyone is trying, really, a lot of us are trying to be a non-self, but as a self. We want non-self qualities, but we want to be the one who has them. And it's a stubborn desire. And it keeps on keeping on. Unless you were looking for nothing, why would you come 500 freaking times? Satsangs. Satsangs are invitations. The dinner is where you are, yeah? You come here to receive an invitation, but the feast is you. If it's not always available at all times, where does it have any value? Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
So this seeing of what you are.
No, seeing of what you're not.
No.
You can't see what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that transformation is going to happen by itself, or
There's no transformation. It's already in place.
so? Yeah, but I'm operating from what I'm not.
No, you're not. There's an operating from what you're not, but it's not you.
Yeah.
How would it, if it was you, you wouldn't know you were operating from what you're not. You can see it. That's what you are.
But you're telling us that I'm not.
Hopefully I'm not telling you. I'm hopefully hopefully inviting you to see for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not a seeing of what you are. That which is seen can never be seen. That which is hearing is never going to be heard. That which is feeling is never going to be felt. That which is tasting is never going to be tasted. See, the only possibility we have concerning us is being it. You can't know what you are. You can't experience what you are. You can't study what you are. You can know what you're not. You can study what you're not, and you're experiencing what you're not all freaking day. But you only one possibility concerning us is being it. And I'm humbly believing we're all being it right now. We just don't think so. It's not about this getting destroyed. It was never here. Really what happens, this gets flooded with acceptance that you could never come up with by chanting, I accept myself, doing that thing that, remember that guy on SNL did that little, I'm worthy, my name is Ernie, and I deserve, no, that's, yeah, it just comes. The picture bleeds from the out, not put on. Yes, you'll find out that you're traveling lighter, and you'll find out that there's an acceptance available, and then by the acceptance you realize there was never an acceptance. Yeah? And it masqueraded as spiritual journeys and other things. You've been trying to get out of yourself your whole freaking life since about 6. But you've been caught by the dilemma. You've been trying to get out of self as a self. This is a simple correction. It works with me, and that's why, I come here. I can't, this was a terrible career choice for me, really, because I can't extend this to like a 4-day, and I don't believe in intensives because I think Wednesday in Seattle is intense enough. I don't think, why would you pay $200 to go on an intensive? You're paying probably a lot of rent here to be on an intensive. And retreats, they're beautiful, but when do they go to Newark, New Jersey, or fucking Hoboken? They're always Costa Rica, Hawaii, and stuff like that. Go to Newark and see if you make it through one day. You'll want to retreat from there, for sure. So, I don't, retreats are fine, but I don't want it to be construed that more is better in this topic, because it isn't. More isn't better. And time isn't better. It's a simple, humble invitation. Yeah. You will know the problem from the solution. That's where the relief lies. There's no real relief in knowing the problem from the problem. The freedom from bondage is before the bondage, not after the bondage. Yeah? The freedom of bondage is before. When you have true freedom around bondage, you realize there was no one, nor was there any bonding. There was no one to be bound also. Yes, that's the freedom from it. Yeah, the freedom is before. It always is. So, and even if people think they've arrived at some place where they wake up, when if they have that download, it's going to inform them it's always been this way, so did they ever even travel to it? Because it's always been this way. Yeah. So all our longings and practices are valuable in the dreaming, but in a sense, they didn't produce the end of the dreaming. Yeah, because there's no end to the dreaming. That which is dreaming has been dreaming the whole time. There's no point where it wakes up, because it's never not been awake. Yeah? It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It doesn't have an entrance or exit. You don't get in and nor do you get out. So, any more questions?
In the past, you talked about grace.
Yes.
Can you say a few words about that?
Ah, well, I'd rather feel it than talk about it, yeah. I like the idea of grace. Unlucky for me, because the action figure has its own little hymn, you know? And the greatest demonstration in the action figure's life was me getting struck sober. Yeah? And in that sense, the way I can paint what happened to me is grace. Yeah? Because I had lost all hope. All I was attempting to do at that time was to stay loaded until I could get high, and just try to stay high as long as I could before I parked at those 3 parking spaces, institution, jails, and death. And yet something just intervened and downloaded in me, and from that point on, it's been over 30 years now, I've never had a strong thought or a feeling to get loaded, which is incredible, because the problem doesn't exist for me anymore. And that's an incredible solution. So in that area, the word grace is appropriate. In non-duality, I don't need to me it's nothing. And in non-duality, I don't want to be helpful. And in non-duality, I just want to invite. I don't want to instruct. All I teach is about all I teach about is duality, so that hopefully you'll recognize what you're not, basically. No one is a non-duality teacher. They're duality teachers. There's no learning non-duality, but you can learn duality and realize you're not that, and it's not so, and therefore the so-ness will be obvious. Yeah. So grace, I usually use it in more my translation of what's happened to me as this through recovery. Yes. Yeah. I feel a lot of grace in it. Yes.
Well, the image that comes to me is, it's like this movement out, movement back. Right, like the bondage is like fully in this thing. And then something happens where there's like an energetic shift. And then we're not going back, it's like everything is in air quotes here, but like we're not going back in, or there's not a movement back into the...
Yeah, yeah. Well, all the selfing is time, yeah? So when there's a feeling of timelessness, it could be interpreted by this little interpretation, like this is an interpreter, yeah? It could be interpreted as you got moved back, or before. It didn't happen because you've never not been there, but that's the sense, yeah. Because timelessness has a total different flavor than time, Time to me is more like a horizontal download, and timelessness is like a vertical download, yeah? So when you have a feeling of being before the activities, the thinking and the memories, it may feel like you've stepped back, but that's the flair we have as an interpretive expression, You know what I mean? Yeah.
Paul, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your experience of download. say download it, I mean, it's an interesting concept. Is it like when an insight suddenly hits, or is it like when there's a shift in perspective, or all of the above?
The above.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, it doesn't get translated to information. Sometimes, because this is a seed assignment, it gets translated into how it's saying something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just an energy, sometimes it's just a vague very expansive sense. It's sort of like if you drop, see, I believe you don't realize mind, but there's realizations in mind, yeah? So when a realization happens, it's like dropping a stone in a well and it never hearing it hit, you know? So the realization, by it arising, informs you of the infinite size of what is happening in. You know what I mean? You can't experience that, but you get a sense of it by the experience of the realization. So everything that happens, the downloads, they imply something else. Like a lot of the downloads are reverse engineering. So you have relief, and then it tells you why you didn't seem to have it before. It's like a complete explanation. It's like, let's say, 3 trails of light in all your story for 50 years. You see it completely, yeah? So the relief comes, and then it informs you why it didn't seem to be there. So it's more like that a lot. Or there's a realization, and the realization isn't a big deal, but it's like almost sonar. It goes out and it never hits anything. That's the big deal. You almost get a size of mind, yeah, like the spaciousness of it. So there's a lot of different ones. I just like it because when I got struck sober, it was a download, yeah, and it bypassed my head and it went into what we call the innermost in recovery, and it was like a CNN news flash, just a headline, and it was, I'm fucked, yeah? Now, people who knew me knew I'd been fucked for quite a while, but the denial that I was in had kept a lot of it at bay, and it all collapsed, and it was really that clear, and it's never changed. It's never come up for review, there's never a debate. I realize I'm not managerial quality, yeah? And I really, I see the mental state as a failed GPS, really, basically. It's giving you instructions, but the maps are super old, you know. We have a story. I went to speak outside of Boston in a rural area once. We got there late, around 11:30, and there was this commotion near this railroad track. So this cop came up and we rolled our window down. We go, hey, what happened? He says, oh, a lady listening to a GPS turned on the railroad tracks. So she was hearing that bump, but she had so much faith in the GPS, she kept driving down the tracks until they had to get a train thing to pull her out. You would have thought you would have felt this, but no, this is the faith we have in the mind, the mental state. It's playing God all day. And this is the dilemma again in recovery. It says first you gotta quit playing God, yeah? But then, if that which is playing God is what claims to hear the message, you got to quit playing God. And then that which is playing God tries to quit playing God. Isn't that playing God? Ad infinitum. This is the problem. The problem with hearing the information from the false reference distorts the information. Or as they say in the study of science now, the observation is distorted. No, the observed is distorted by the observation. Where the observation? Distorting the observed. Yeah. I feel humbly in recovery, it's the act of being identified as the self is the root of the addiction. And the first addiction is the addiction of the mental state for being a self. That's why every other addiction doesn't bring you great relief, because it doesn't get to the root of the problem. The you that's trying to get relief is what you want relief from. But it keeps going on all your addictions and claims to be the one who's shooting the coke and being the one who's doing the program. It migrates. You don't isolate it because it's an act of being identified as it. You can't geographically locate it because it's moving with you. And therefore it spawns all the other drives to get out of self as a self. Therefore they never work. There's not one person I know who did coke that hit a point and they go, thank you, Shri Cocaine. I'm satiated. I give all my coke away. I'll never, no. It just promotes more, like that big hungry ghost with the small mouth in Tibetan Buddhism. It's never freaking enough because it's not hitting the point. The point is the mental state is addicted to self. You wouldn't listen to thoughts about Stanley. You wouldn't listen to Stanley's thoughts unless you went out with a Stanley of 5 years ago, but you're listening to thoughts about you for 50 years. It's not the thoughts, it's the you. That's the addiction. We've had, how many thoughts have been noticed today? A lot. How many of them have been the syringe with the my as the plunger? My thoughts. And what's the sensation? That you're the thinker, you're the feeler, you're definitely the doer. It's just a constant reinforcing of the bondage of self.
What does that addiction get us? Why are we addicted?
Why doesn't work? Why not? I don't know why. Why is pointless to me. I want relief, that's all. I don't care how I got it. If I was dying of thirst, I wouldn't judge the person's jacket that was bringing me the water. I'd grab the bottle. Why doesn't work well, eh? If you have relief, let that be your teacher, yeah? Let the relief inform you of what's going on. Let satisfaction and contentment be the light you follow and see what happens, yeah? Instead of hope and fucking determination or focus, believing something that you don't really even know is true. But let's get the, I don't know. That's all. I've done a lot of talks the last few days. They usually get shorter and shorter as I go. And I don't think it would do you a service to go into everything. You know too much already. What you need is an invitation, and you've been served. And if you're interested in it, go to the YouTubes or wherever. And I pound away at the same thing. People who know me, they come back 10 years later and they go, Paul, anything new? No. Any retreats on the horizon? No. No intensives? No. Nothing. You're going to get nothing. And what I love about it is you can't return it, which is great. Nothing, because nothing is everything. You are what you're looking for. You are what you're looking for. St. Francis says. He doesn't say you are what you are. What is it? Oh, what's looking is what you're looking for. It doesn't say what's looking and then 50 pages of requirements you have to meet to be the you that it's looking for. What's looking is what you're looking for. What's looking? Where, no, what's looking? It's an activity. That's what we're missing. We're thinking it's going to be a thing or something. We're mistaking it as a noun when it's right in front of our face. It's verbing. It's seeing, not the seer. It's seeing. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's all.